It's like 105 in New Orleans. I'm sweating, like my shirt is soaking wet. I feel gross. I don't feel like I look my best. So for me, it's definitely a little awkward.
Maybe an outdoor walking tour wasn't the best idea for a first date. Tyray was already sweating buckets from nerves, and that was before he even stepped out the front door. So will his nerves get the better of him? Will they mess up his first ever date?
You're not a butcher, are you?
No, no butcher here.
Just making sure.
Yeah, I promise not to stab you with a sugar cane.
Wow, Tyray, your flirting needs a lot of work. But before we see whether or not he's scared off his date, let's start at the beginning. So we left Tyray on a boys' trip to New Orleans with his two brothers. The mission? To get action. Any action. And when we join them in this episode, it turns out that Tyray managed to pity his way into a date with a lady named Taresa. The same lady he met at the bar. And secretly, Tyray is hoping that today might be the day he finally has his first ever kiss.
Yesterday, I met this amazing woman named Taresa. I invited Taresa to go on a voodoo tour and a lunch date, and I'm nervous. I'm not gonna lie.
Tyray's trying to pick out what shirt to wear, the light blue or the light purple. But what his brothers really need to tell him is the shirt doesn't matter. What Tyray needs to work on is his confidence, because when he flutters around stuttering with nervous energy, that can really be off-putting on a date. But his brothers are choosing to have a much more positive reinforcement type approach.
If things are going good, you're gonna try to, like, you feel me, get a little smoochy?
I guess we'll see if the vibe is right and stuff.
If the moment is right, do it.
Now, keep in mind that Tyray has been stood up on every date he's ever attempted to go on. So this will be his first ever date. Is he gonna get a smooch? Well, I highly doubt it. He's clearly pinned far too many hopes and dreams on a simple kiss, when what he really needs to take away from a date is learning how to be comfortable talking to a potential partner, not immediately being friend-zoned. Only Tyray has always got one foot out of reality. He's always very ready to daydream.
I guess we were both like looking in each other's eyes and drifted into each other's lips, I guess. I don't know.
Pretty much it, actually. Yeah.
Tyray then takes this opportunity to demonstrate to his brothers how this kiss might go down. And the most impressive thing is he does it with a straight face. And for as encouraging as his brothers have been up till now, this is too much even for them. They both stare at him with looks that say, "Why are you like this, Tyray?" But Tyray is saved by the bell. He needs to get ready for this date or else he'll be late.
But my confidence is through the roof right now. I have this beautiful woman that's gonna meet me and go on this, really fun date with me.
Ricardo, pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you, Ricardo. I'm Tyray.
Look at the confidence in his walk. Now, I will give him this. He's clearly put some effort and planning into this date. A voodoo tour followed by a lunch date sounds like a perfect way to break the ice. It'll give them both a chance to get to know each other in an informal setting with another person, followed by the lunch date that's a bit more private. And for a refreshing change, Taresa is right on time, so we don't have to sit here biting our nails to see whether or not Tyray's been stood up again.
Hope I don't smell like a swamp. But
No, you don't. You smell good.
Thank you.
Hope I don't smell like must and sweat and tears.
So hot. Oh, that's so funny.
Now, for context, Taresa just came from a swamp tour. That's why she might smell like a swamp. But why Tyray would counter that by saying he might smell like must, sweat and tears is beyond me. Why, Tyray, why? I'm not sure about the must and tears part, but what no one can ignore right now is the copious amounts of sweat pouring out of Tyray's shoulders. It's hot, and undoubtedly Tyray's nervous. But, thankfully, as a military woman, a sweaty man isn't exactly something that Taresa hasn't encountered before. So she chooses to look past it.
Really excited to see Tyray. From yesterday, just meeting him for the first time, he is so sweet, and I think talking to him is really easy, and conversation comes naturally.
Taresa says that she had a great connection with Tyray. They vibed, to use her phrase. She seems like a warm, friendly lady, but I get the feeling that this for her is more her being a nice person who wants to encourage Tyray to come out of his shell. I'm really not convinced she sees this as a serious date with a potential romantic partner. But either way, as the tour guide does an energetic reenactment of a horrible murder, she tries her best to initiate conversation and get the banter flowing.
Chop, chop, chop.
Ew. You're not a butcher, are you?
No, no butcher here.
Just making sure.
Yeah, I promise not to stab you with a sugar cane.
I don't quite know what it is about Tyray. I can't put my finger on it, but whatever he says, it just feels like the guy has no game. Like, Taresa gave him the perfect opening to say something flirty back to her, but instead, he decided to go with, "I promise not to stab you." But thankfully, Taresa has a sense of humour. She tells Tyray if he were to attempt to stab her, she'd win, and I think that's absolutely true. So, as the tour goes on, it becomes more and more obvious that poor Tyray is really struggling.
It's like 105 in New Orleans. I'm sweating, like my shirt is soaking wet. I feel gross. I don't feel like I look my best. So for me, it's definitely a little awkward.
I feel for Tyray here. He started the date so confidently, but as those sweat patches on his shoulders grow in size, sadly, his confidence shrinks. Now, when the tour ends, the pair decide to go somewhere out of the heat to grab some lunch. And despite collectively smelling like swamps, must, sweat and tears, Tyray is feeling good about how things are going, and he might actually be right.
He is going to make a great partner. Getting more one-on-one time and talking to him more is just going to help me find out, like, where do we stand?
Tyray would make a great partner. He's kind, he's supportive, he has a whole lot of love to give. We can see all of his qualities from the fact that he's a full-time carer for his mum. He cooks for her, he cleans for her. I mean, there are a lot of women who'd love to have a guy like that. And when Tyray asks Taresa what she's looking for in a partner, she just about confirms this. She says she wants a sweet guy, and importantly for her, she's also looking for someone with a love of travel.
I don't really have a type. I've found that out recently. Like, really, I just go off of if we're getting along and I feel like I can open up to you.
Okay, these are all good signs, and as far as a love of travel goes, Tyray does check that box. I mean, he did fly out to Barbados after all. Taresa has already called him a teddy bear. She has told us she finds him incredibly easy to talk to. So check, check, check. She seems really genuine. She seems to really like Tyray for who he is. But this is all a bit too good to be true. Because let's not forget, for both of these guys, this is a vacation. Their lives at home are completely different.
Hopeless romantic all the way. But I'm also a realist, and I know my life is unstable being in the military, which is why a lot of military marry military, like my ex is military as well.
Now, given that Taresa, just like Tyray, also professes to be a hopeless romantic, perhaps, just maybe, if this connection she talks about is genuine, well, maybe they might be able to stand a chance. That is, if she wasn't in the military. Because, romantic or not, Taresa is realistic. You see, when Tyray asks her the question that any potential relationship would hinge on, how does she feel about long-distance relationships? Her response is far less enthusiastic.
I am cautious with long distance.
I understand where Taresa is coming from with the long distance thing, but it is a little disappointing to hear.
Taresa tells Tyray that she's seen one too many relationship crumble because of just how much time military people spend away from their loved ones. Now, frankly, her stance on long-distance relationships isn't exactly uncommon. Many people avoid long distance for precisely that reason, the distance, the time spent apart. And actually, you'd have thought that Tyray would also be in the same boat, especially considering how bad his last long-distance relationship was. But that's not the case. He's very open to it. And so their lunch date ends with the pair both committing to staying in touch.
it was like fate. We help each other through learning ourselves and the transition.
Exactly. The spirits brought us together.
The spirit, the voodoo, spirit.
There you go, Tyray. That's a bit more like it. His flirtation, his friendly banter has definitely improved from just a few hours ago. I mean, voodoo spirits bringing you together, whilst not the most romantic thing I've ever heard, is definitely a step up from telling someone you're gonna stab them. Now, as far as intentions and motivations go, Taresa tells Tyray that she wants to stay in touch so that both can help each other navigate through and get past their recent breakups. She's not necessarily ruling out a future with Tyray, but what she is saying is right now it's just not feasible. I mean, look, realistically, are we likely to see these two as a couple sometime in the future? Well, I don't think that's going to be the case. But Taresa does seem like a nice lady. In fact, I'd go one step further and I'd say she seems like the perfect lady for Tyray to have had this experience with.
One of the major things I learned from this date with Taresa was definitely just to be yourself. And it is okay to have a date that doesn't immediately lead to a love connection.
Yes, Tyray, our boy is growing up, isn't he? It may have only been one date, but already Tyray is beginning to shake off his juvenile notions of what love is. He's maturing. This date has been so good for him. Who knows, 1 or 2 dates more and he might then be ready for his first kiss.